big heavy fellow in a cent, don't know. Big mower they call it, don't know. Life had a serious stroke. Just thought about it. Sorry, I can't read this print without my glasses, so I'll wait till the glasses come down. Listen, what goes on in this minyan on Mincha and Maariv? Something goes on, I don't know what it is, but I'm in the middle of Shemoneh Esrei. And I'm about halfway through Shemoneh Esrei, and every day it starts to move. You know, it's like the whole place goes on wheels. You hear tables moving, you know, then you hear things shaking, and then somebody bangs on the tables. Well, you don't know because you're davening Shemoneh Esrei. Anybody willing to just throw a word? What actually happens down there at the back? Something goes on. I've got to get to the bottom of it. I can't very well daven Shemoneh Esrei and get to the bottom of it as well. But something goes on every day. I hear it. And it's some sort of weird clipper that's Rangi Chottenberg. It's a clipper kosher. And people play around down there at the back. I can hear it. I mean, I'm only a human. I can hear the lo'inus. I hear in the middle of my Shemoneh Esrei, I hear what's going on down there. And I don't know how these guys, you know, what they imagine is the dinim and Shulchan Aruch when they get their Hilchos Tefillah. I just can't figure it, you know, because I've taught myself to daven very quickly here in this minyan, more than what I do when I daven by some of the Balbatim in Baneva. Some of them daven, you know, the privilege is that they daven slower. Well, here I have to teach myself to daven very, very high speed, so I can sort of, you know, I don't hold people up. And I finish and everybody's finished. I mean, I just can't figure in my life. What are these guys going to be like when they get out in the Balbatisha world? You know, what are they going to be like? What's going to be the, you know, what's it the tachlis from the whole? I just can't understand. I can't, you can't persuade me. No matter how much this person will try to persuade me, these people, that they really do say the whole Shemoneh and they really are Yotzei. I just can't believe it. I can tell you that people are standing every day in Shachris Mincha. It's just a min spiel or something. I just don't know. It's beyond my ability to grasp it. I've spoken about it, and I've begged, and I've said, and I've spoken. It's too long. You know. And I'm almost certain that somebody tonight whistled. There was a whistle. But maybe, you know, I mean, I don't hear well, that's the truth. My hearing is very confused over the last few months. So maybe I just heard, you know, maybe a table moved and squeaked and I thought it was a whistle or something. I don't know. But if I ever found the culprit of that, I would oust him right on the spot. I'd send him out of the room and he would never come back to that room. It's, I mean, the matzah is just oyim, I mean, to say. I can't figure it. It's just, it really bothers me. It's one of the things that really bothers me a lot over the last couple of years in the yeshiva, that I can't get through to guys. There's such a thing as tefillah, and tefillah means that you're oyimid l'fnei HaMelech, and you say words to the Eibishter, and you pray to him. You tell you, you just finish it all. You should be able to schmeichel mit jenem or wafim or Pesach, and we should get them remers, or, you know, sitzen and drehen a cup, or moving tables and carrying like some sort of heiswas. This is beyond my grasp. I've never had it in the history of the yeshiva. You know, in the old days, you know, we had guys that came from all sorts of trivial backgrounds, but you know, when you taught them the idea of tefillah, they were very taken by it. They wanted to be in the idea of the other. That's why we started the minyan, because we wanted people to be able to daven together. You know, it meant something. You know. I feel embarrassed that I'm holding everybody up. You know, I feel embarrassed. When I finished, the whole oilam was waiting for me. So it's not as if, you know, everybody can shoot it. And I'm gobbling away at the highest possible speed I can. You know, I just couldn't possibly physically say it any quicker. There's no way. But when I finished, Everybody's looking at him, some sort of old crotter, some old goydel or something. What's he doing now? You know? It's beyond my ability. I can't grasp it. I can't figure it. So now we go back to the mountain. Now I've got my glasses, so I'll be able to see straight. I'll be able to say at least a few words. Bedurch Seichel and Bedurch Tsar v'Lamayla v'Lamata mehr. Das heißt, the side of Seichel, Seichel Mata mehr. All right. So we said the ayin of the Yeshan Yibel, the second, the Madriga base in the ayin. We saw that he wasn't in a state of Peshitos and Heder Hametias, and we saw earlier that those were two concepts dependent one in the other. And with Shayach Shom Bechinas Iskalulas HaKoiches VaMadreges HaProties, the Yesh Bechinas Mokoir Lecho Prote HaMadreges Shinis Havu, they came about. And we saw the Be'ikeh. Somebody brought up the Shaila, how do you get from Shitas in the Ayin Ha'alef into a state where you already koil the Atzmach Protim in order to be a mokher to all the madrigas that are going to be Tzaveh. So we answered that was the Sod HaTzimtzum, that was the concept of Tzimtzum. In other words, there are different madrigas in ha'oras, as we point out. The ha'ora from the atzmus is the ayin ha'alef, and that's also a ha'ora, or it's ha'ora atzmiyas. And then from that ha'ora there goes another ha'ora, and maybe even different madrigas in ha'ora, as we pointed out. There come madrigas in the etzim ha'oras, and in the ha'ora gufa you can also get gradations. But it's hard to say that you would get mamish from shitas to a metzias which is koil in itself protim, almanas. Even though we could say that be'ikar, that's totally indeed in a tzimtzum. But it's also with a midah mesuyemas, it's totally in the etzem ha'oras themselves, that a ha'ora being only a ein arech, luminescence from the mokeh or from the etzem, which is a nimsha. So in whereas gufa you have a ha'ora from a ha'ora, and we have to understand that a ha'ora, which is already just a luminescence from a madriga which is below a ha'ora, then we have to say that can cause relative yerides, not albeit even for complete ein arech, but al chaponim, even from ein arech gradation wise from one level to the other, plus the inyan at tzimtzum, what the tzimtzum's inyan is to, as it were, be monea, the gila of certain inyanim, only to the makablim, of course, as well known from the shittas where we're learning now in Tanya, Perikov and Perikov Aleph. The tzimtzum is only the gavi to makablim, it's not be'emes. Well, upon the pool of the tzimtzum is that it prevents certain inyanim being miskala to the makabel. So we have to suggest that the inyan at tzimtzum in these inyanim is that it doesn't allow the whole inyan of the pshitas to be miskala. And that demands a biur. How's it try to say you don't allow a whole pshita? Pshita is a door with its be'etzim poshut. And there's mishkala azam in ha'ora, which has in itself the inyan ha'protim. So we have to say that the biur is itself koso, a door which is poshut, is anyway koilel in itself protim adein so. Those protim are even from havdola, havshota, legamri in the peshitas. In other words, it's only like a form of a yechoilis, it's a capacity that the dova haposhet could produce protim. Or not that it has the protim klulim boy, it can produce protim. We have to say that the tzimtzum reduces the etzem gilui at the pshitas, but even because that the protim are able to be miskale mitzad the yechoilis anyway, which is there in the peshitas, and that yechoilis bilvad is not there. Beklal mitadi etzem gilur the Pshitas atzmei. Once you already monea alidei the koach hatzimtzum, so then it's more like you might say the idea of the shield around the sun, which we brought down in Silas, that causes a certain yerid of a tfisa in the pshitas of the shemesh in order that there should be a oyer ba'in areicha, let's say shemesh, but that's the oyer hashem. And we can say that that's the biur, how is it from that pshitas we get a initial protein. Now we're going to talk about the whole concept of a pshitas giving forth from itself a little bit further along here, maybe even in this lesson. It is a doirush biur, that's what I would suggest per there. How we get from the pshitas gemura of the ayin ha'atzmi into the ability of the ayin base, which is so-called only ha'ora from the ayin aleph, to be a moche already koil in itself, protim, albeit koil not mamish in a klal el prat, but koil nonetheless in itself over the protim. Ve'alpia now yuven the base b'chinas ayin hanal, agam shishneim nikroim ayin mikol mokim, ikra amitias sheim ayin, hu b'chinas ha'ayin shel ha'yeshu amiti. Do we learn this in the last class? I think we did. Yeah, we had this inyan. The word ayin means something which is mushlal, gated for many matzias in its himself. So we saw that name ayin applies only to the ha'ora from the Yeshua Amiti, because it's like we saw, it's betachas habitl. Agam shishneim nikroim ayin mikomoch ikar amiti shem ayin hu b'chinas ayin shel Yeshua Amiti. Avu b'ayin habeis hashem ayin, the name ayin, hu k'mo shem ha-mushal. It's like a borrowed name. In other words, the Alter Rebbe brings down in Tanya in Perek Aleph, when they get to the inyan of tzaddik, that can be what's called a shem ha-mushal. Meaning that you borrow the name. It's not a Shem HaEtzem, it's not even a Shem HaTuyar to that matter. It doesn't describe it either in a genuine way, but a certain distant similarity to that in a general way, which we use the Shem HaEtzem from somewhere else is like a borrowed over here to that, like a borrowed term over here to that Etzem. And maybe that's what they call in English a nickname, meaning there's not really the real name. Of course, there must be something expressive in that nickname which gives out something about that person or about his real name. So therefore, the same here. The Shem Ayin in the second case is not a real Shem HaEtzem, because it's not really Ayin. On the contrary, it's got to be already a form of Metzias in order to be a Makor for all the elements. Yet, nonetheless, it's got in itself a certain state of negation of the Inyan Amatzias, enough to call it by a borrowed name Ayin. And we'll see later on that really the emphasis of word ayin for that level is really mitzad the mekablim. We say they call it ayin because they can't really be masik that either. They can't be masik that madrega, therefore they call it not known ayin, which is not really a name in the very essence of the thing, but only mitzad how people are not able really to explain it, and therefore it's a shem ha-mush'al. And Mashenkin in the ayin of the Yeshua Amiti, well, that is a name which fits even Shel Shem HaToya or Shem HaEtzem, the very nature of that in its own self. Dehine b'chinas ha'ayin ha'alev harihu b'chinas ayin mamish. It is negated, a negation of Metzias mamish. Dahainu, how is that? Mitzad ha'pshita shaloi. Due to the fact that it's absolutely simple and not made up of any constituent entities, the inyan apshitas hu inyan heder amatzius kanal. Now we discussed earlier in the Maimah, but I was just talking to somebody derech hagav, that it's to our great tsar in this particular class, that it's a question as to whether anybody really does any chazorah, because most of the little notes that I get about people attending in the morning are rather mournful. In other words, a lot of people just don't show up, or if they do, they show up 3/4 of an hour late, or who knows what. I'm not attacking those who do come regularly, but unfortunately, I think they're the few and not the many. So sometimes I wonder to myself if anybody ever has this material. If they had, then they would remember that we had earlier in the Maimah that pshitas, simplicity, meaning withdrawnness from any matzias, well, that leads to a herder matzias. It means that you're there, but you're not there. In other words, you're a state, but you're not an entity. In other words, that's the way we might say it in English for pshitas. Because you're not made up of anything. As if you're not made up of anything, you don't really exist. You're not really a matzius, you're not an existing entity, even though you're a certain form of being. And that's in a peshita. So therefore, if we're going to say that the ayin amiti is peshitas, then that means automatically that he's heder hama matzias, umikol shechein, how much more so, but there are kal v'chaimer, mitzad ha-bitul shaloi, shehu b'chinas ayin vo'efes, b'chinas bitul atzmi ume koiri. Now we saw in the whole hemshech of that argument, when I get to the ayin or aleph, the concept of bittul, and we saw the bittul in the oil and the different madregas of what we call bittul atzmi and bittul b'met. Bittul b'matziyah. So we saw that the ayin or atzmi, he is botel in a form of ayin vo efes. In other words, his bittul, gabi the atzmas, is not just a negation, but it's efes. It's the very essence of naught. In other words, he is botel absolutely b'matziyusay, in a way that he doesn't feel his own matziyas klalo. Klalo, he's only aware of the etzem. That's the inyan of efes biltech, as we saw in the different levels. And that's the inyan of imamera mitzad bittul. Then it's a kal v'chomer that he's beheder hamatzias, because that bittul is a bittul atzmi, meaning a bittul in the very essence of his being or his state. Umakoiri, it's like his mocker. Makoiri meaning it's like the mocker from which he is nimshach. In other words, it's like the atzmus is mushlau, we call geder hamatzias, so he's also mushlau, gemre we call geder hamatzias mitad his kesher and his yichud with the mocker, and that's the inyan bittul. We've got here two inyanim. First of all, the pshitas, by definition, means something which is not begeder matzias, and then the bittul that he has, it makes him even more. The bittul is like a kalva choimer, because the inyan of pshitas means it's so. We have to say there is a certain awareness of some sort of a matzias, because we say that it's poshut. If you say it's poshut, then you're being shaylu from being a matzias. So that means that it must be somehow or another describable as an entity, and therefore we say it's poshut. And therefore it's not the mitis inyan of self-nullification. It's just what it is, by definition, are not nitfas b'matzias type of entity. Bittul is another idea. Bittul is the hergish, kaviyahol, the idea b'fnim, in the etzem thing, just how much it's botel and completely of no matzias. In other words, it's, as it were, aware of its own nothingness. And that's a greater form of nothingness, gabi demoker, and that's called bitul. And therefore we saw that when it comes to pnimis hakesed, the ratio to loy is yada v'loy yoda, but that's pnimis atik mamish, that's the highest of all these madregas in bitul. And we saw that this loy yoda doesn't even know that it's bottle. No, it's so bottle that's not even aware that it's bottle. But that's another getter altogether. That means absolute bittul mikol v'ko. Now this is pretty close to it. The bittul of efes is only one madrega, as it were, underneath that. So therefore, it's in even of bittul atzmi umakoiri. It's very bedimian to the bittul, it's mocker, because it is aware and feels its dveikus in the mocker, as we pointed out earlier. Umishum zeh, for these both reasons, yitochein likroisai ayin, whatever we call him, nothing, negated Matthias altogether. Liyoise b'chinas ayin be'etem. He's in his very essence, he is negated from any Matthias. Ayin. Mashain kain b'chinas ayin habeis. That level which is already the mokia for the yesh hanivro, hare ein b'chinas pshitas be'etem. It's not pshitas be'etem. Now when you say it's ein pshitas be'etem, then that would mean to say that maybe it is pshitas legavi something else, but it's not pshitas be'etem. He doesn't say ein pshitas klal. He just says ein pshitas be'etem. Because legabe, the yesha which is mamish mishave memenu, then it is ein from pshitas. He said it's ein pshitas be'etem v'shayich boy moker prote hadvorim shinasavu. It's shaykh a source in it for all the detailed inyanim which are about to come about. V'gam, he says, that it's not the inyan that we saw in the Ayin Aleph, the first factor, which is pshitas. It's not mamish pshitas because it hasn't until a skalulus, albeit in a highway, but nonetheless a skalulus for all the protein which are going to eventually be created. That's one inyan. It's also not in that level of bittul of the Ayin Aleph, between his heder hamatziyas, that it should just be convinced within its own self that it has no matziyas. Sheim hoya b'chinas pshitas, or b'chinas heder hamatziyas. The second factor, loy hoya efshir liyayish mokela oilamas. It wouldn't be able to be b'klal mokela ilamas, as we already explained earlier, that anything that wants to become a moker to things which are going to be mishaveh mimenu, then it has to be a certain matzias, because if it's just absolutely botel b'kol matzias, it can't be a moker to be mashpia to other inyon. Ki adova haposhut who moved al be'erech ve'en lo erech v'shayches lematzias dova ma, to be some sort of existing entity. We said to be a mashpia to other madregas, that they should be misava, and the mocha has to be a matzias dovama alko ponim. However, he said it has to be, by definition, not in the same oifen of bittul of heda matzias like the Ayin Aleph. It's imkain, then it's got a certain shaykhs to the inyan of matzias, making it possible for it to be mahaver the oilamas.
Why is Heder HaMetzios sometimes connected with Pshitos, and then sometimes we say that it's the inyan of bittul?
We pointed out already, that's two different oifanim. Heder HaMetzios is like a description of the etzem inyan kamoshuhu. That you say, because it doesn't have the inyan for Metzias, so therefore the inyan of any harkova, klal in itself, no Metzias dova, but toichoi, therefore it can't be a mocha to something else, it's just completely moved out. And the second thing talks about the bittul, the heritage of that thing with Gabi the Atzmos. You follow? And we said that was in the very essence of the inyan, what it feels, and it's aware of itself as nothing. You got that in? And he said that's called a kolshkein. But that's legabi being a mokia or something. Well, that's a kolshkein legabi. It had some status as an entity. Understand? It had some status, and it also makes it distant from being a mokia. But I think we just bottle like that in its own self, and it's aware to tell bottle is that could never be a mokia. No, it's the two. So in the yesh of the ayin of the yesh misave, we've just pointed out that it doesn't have either of those things so much. First of all, it's only a relative type of pshitas, and secondly, it doesn't have that type of bittul. It's only a bittul yesh, as we saw earlier. Albeit that's a higher level in bittul yesh, but it's only bittul hayesh, and therefore it can be a mokir to the varim which are mishavim mimenu. So now we're going to do in the brackets with an inyan that have you guys learned the Bossi Vagani? Do you fellows learn the Bossi Vagani? I mean, you don't learn Rob Bolton's class, you know. He teaches the Bossi Vagani, doesn't he? Yeah. You guys wouldn't know what they're holding over there or what they've learned.
I learn the first 3 oisius.
Huh?
I learn the first 5 oisius every year.
That's what they do, the first 5 is. That's funny, because the other day he said to me, Rob Bolton, something about that, in the Bossi Lagani for this Shiur talks about the Neitzach or something, which it does. So, I mean, I thought that was what he was teaching the Bachman, but could be not. Anyway, over there in the chapters which have got to do now with this sort of, if you go according to the 20 years each time, then Mamish, this Indian is mentioned in that part of the Bossi Elegana Mamish, in a slightly different Lashon, but it's Mamish the same in this bracket, so we're about that now. Yeah, so, this said that something which is a Indian from Pshitas is not able to be a mokir, to be mahave something. However, that doesn't mean that dough which is poshut can't give off from itself a ispashtas, what you might call a ha'ora. Now, ispashtas is a word in Lashon Kodesh which refers to illuminescence or a ha'ora, meaning something which is not mamoshes. Like oil is a very famous example of ispashtas, that it goes off from the mokir in a way that it doesn't in any way draw any atzmis from the mokir, it doesn't affect the mokir, it doesn't cause any turda or a preoccupation in the mokir. That's the concept of his pashtas. So what we're going to suggest is that even though a dough which is poshut can't be mahaviz, it can't be a mokir, lahaviz mashu, however, it can give off from itself a pashtas. In other words, that there can be a oyer which is meir from a dough of poshut. But that oil which is meir from a dough of poshut, that will be like the dough of poshut. In other words, it'll have in itself certain inyanim, similar to the concept of oyer mi'ein hamoyer, which means that it'll be a very elevated and also unable ha'ora to really have any shaykhs with Matthias either. In other words, that it'll be a ispashtas which will have in it all the essential qualities for our purposes that the pashitas of the mokir have, or the mokir which is a dover poshut have. And that's what he says now. He said, who bepinas bligvu dafker, or that which goes off, but derech ha'ora, or for our purpose we could use the expression b'derech oyer from mokir poshut, is dafker bepinas bligvu. Okay, meishkosu b'mokir macher, as is written in another place, papirush, antu chad v'loibe chushpan. You are literally one, and you are not in any calculation, you are in any cheshbon. The lafi shehu b'chinas peshitas lezois is pashtus shehu b'chinas loi b'chushpan, which means b'chinas bli vu. Now, you mustn't tell me that you don't know where that's written. Antu chad v'loi b'chushpan. That every Friday you open the Pasuk Eliyahu with that statement. Yeah. Don't you? Pasuk Eliyahu. Antu chad v'loiber v'chushpan. Now, the interesting expression there, antu chad. Why don't you say antu echad or antu chesed? What's the notion chad? It's like an Aramic usage of the word, like an Aramic brevity almost for the idea of unity. Antu chad. So, I mean, there's various ways you can say one, unity. In Lashon Kodesh, for example, you can say yochid. And a yochid means one and only, a single. There's no other material. Echad means what we call a unity of all the details into a oneness. But you don't bring all the details into a zamin beetle, the unity, that they become like one entity. That's the word echad. So this word chad, what does it mean? Does it mean echad? Does it mean yochid? You know, what's the throw? What's the pitch with this word chad? So it's very interesting that Chassidus Taisus came up with Kol HaMekaymes, that the word chad in this particular case means like yochid. It doesn't mean echad, but it means like yochid. But regular, what you say that something is yochid, then you imply that it's one and one and only, meaning that there's no other one like it. Nothing. If you say somebody's a ben yochid, then he's the only son in the family. Nicht auch ein zweiter. Not anybody even bedimmen love it. Das ist Yeah, the ben yochid. In other words, he's one and only. If I say antu chad, I'm referring as a word to the Eibush. I'm saying antu chad, and then I say v'loi b'chush pan. So the expression of loy b'chush pan is like a little bit of a letdown in a way. Loy b'chush pan means you're not in any calculated sum, total, or it's the word cheshbon, meaning that you're out of the normal limitations. So how does that fit in with antu? Yeah, antu chad, and then we say v'loy b'chush pan. Taish the Rebbe here that the word chad really means here al der v'yochid, not echad. Because if I say echad, I mean maybe there's all sorts of details, but they're betailim. That's what I imply with the word echad. However, I say yochid, I mean it's one and only entity, all on its own. Nothing can be bedimin alav ein lezeko harkova. It's not made up of anything. It's yochid be'etuma amatzi. Edefa, lefi zeh komt is that antu chad, you are ein fin yochid. What could that mean? That could mean you are in a state of absolute peshitas. Since you're in a state of absolute peshitas, loy b'chush ban. I always try to loy b'chush ban. If you're chad, then avadi not b'chush ban. Now, what does the loy b'chush ban mean? The ha'ora and these pashtas which go from you is b'meila because you are chad, you are yochid, and that what goes off from you is loy b'chush ban. It's bli gvul be'etzamameh. Bli gvul be'etzamameh hamatziyas. In other words, it's something which is moved out from matziyas by definition. What does is yochid, if it gives off even these pashtas, remember these pashtas is adain gvul adain. So, however, there's one part which is not mentioned here, and that's had you known the page over there in the Bosi Legani where it's mentioned, and in Torah from the Alter Rebbe in Pasha Vayero. But there, it's because he touches it up already, you've got to find the right couple of lines to get onto the point over there, because it's very complex over there in that moment. But in other places in Siddhis, it's Muzbar, and in the Bosi Legani, that doesn't just mean that the pashtas is ad bligvu, but ad ain't safe, but it means that if you will talk about dargis in the ispashtas, because we said that something which poshet includes in itself all the possible madrigas, is if we'll say that the ha'ora, which is going off now from the pshitas chad, is already becoming shayat, that maybe there be an Eizeshu madrigas, then each madriga will also be ad ein, each madriga will also be bli gvul. In other words, it's not just that the etzem mishpashtas itself can just go ad bli gvul, or will go ad bli gvul, but if we'll talk about dargis, now we'll say mitzad the pshitas there's already a certain ability to talk about dargis, then those dargis themselves will also be bli gvul. And that's the famous concept called Spheres Ein Kate. You ever heard of the concept in the Alter Rebbe's Chassidus of Spheres Ein Kates? That's well known. The Alter Rebbe brings it down in several places. In Torah, he's Maramas also upon him lenient there. And we say that prior to what's called Lamaila, the Alois HaRotzen, or the Hashora Bekoyach, but sometimes mashma they're the same meaning, sometimes mashma they're two gradations or two dargas in the same meaning. What's called till the Eibush begins deliberately foreseeing Kaviyach what's going to be after the Tzimtzum, then we can talk about already spheres, but we say spheres ain't kates. You name it, that could be. In other words, what we have now as spheres, just imagine other spheres completely differently, and ain't kates for say. It's an amazing concept. That's called spheres ain't kates. And the beauty of it is that not only the spheres themselves are just in number ain't kates, but each one of them is also ain't safe for etzem agilu shalai. In other words, it's like ain't safe, but ain't safe. And those are the pshat antu chad v'loy
v'chushpan, that since you are yochid, you are mamish, the from pshitas, what goes off from you is ein kate in its ability to reveal itself, and in if the madregas that would come there, mitzad the ha'ora, they would be innumerable, sviras ad ein kate, but they would also be, each one of them, ein kate lis pashtus imam. So it's quite a madrega. That's called the Sfiras Ein Kate. That's not the air kol bi'atzmas. That's only the air which is miskala mina atzmas. And in that gufa, after this a certain madrega. Or the Arizal talks about the air alien poshut shahoya mamalas kol amatzias. So there, that alien poshut shahoya mamalas kol amatzias. But in that gufa, you got this in from Sfiras Ein Kate. And those are the pshat antu chad v'loiber b'chushpan. But he's going to bring now an amazing marshal on this. But all readers in the Vasi Lagani Void Mekimus break their minds and their attention a little bit to try and figure what is this marshal. And here we have a sort of a slightly helpful pointer as to how to understand it. So he says, Antu chad v'lei b'chushpan, de lefi shu chad. And here he teaches, was it a teach chad yochid? B'chinas peshitas, lo zois, due to that, is pashtusay hu b'chinas loiba chushpan, b'chinas bligvu. V'gam came b'chinas peshitas. He said that also that ha'ora itself, which will go off, and it's also b'chinas peshitas. The chiddush is that if you would talk about madregas, and you get mitzad the milah of the peshitas, mitzad the perfection of the peshitas, there can be madregas there. And if you were to be megala them in some way, they would also be in an even from believable, means that the ha'ora itself is also b'chinas peshitas. V'hainu is a bli b'chinas metzias dovo. In other words, that even the ha'ora, which goes off from the chad, is also not in the form of a matzias door. Pick the ziva mokir. The pshitas is not a matzias door. Ukamaima ha'idra zutra. Was if I wasn't ever so slightly audacious, I would say that maybe that's a shtiku to us. Nidmili in other places it says but maybe not. I have to check it again. Anyway, let's say the Idra Zutra, well, that's right at the end of the Zohar. And Nidmili sheyesh makim is brought in the name of the Tikkuni Zohar. But anyway, Ukemaima ha'idra Zutra, kahai butzina dis pashet l'kol satar v'ivar. V'chadaikis pohin lo tishkach ela butzina chado bil chudoye is the lesson over there. Rabbi brings it on its own. That's the expression. In other words, like this light, butzina is the Aramic or the Zohar word for nair. He said this nair, that it's pashet, that its light goes off. How do you call it? It's mit pashet. L'chol satar v'iva, to all sides and corners. Satar is Rosh Sitra, and ivar is Rosh Eva. Eva meaning a side or a corner. In other words, there's a butzina in the middle of the room, and the light goes all round to all the sides and all the corners of the room. But if you will pay careful attention and you look carefully at all the lights from that butzina which are found in B'chol Sitave Iva, and you look at them carefully, he said, Loi tishkach ela butzina chado. You only find one light. And in the etzem lashon of the Zoyadot, it is Loi timta ela butzina chado bil chudoi, on his own, bilvat, on his own. You say there's a nair in the middle of the room, the nair is giving off this light called Sitavayiva. If you go around, you look at all those lights in all the different places, and you look in the corners, and he said you won't find anything, you only find the light. The original light, Bil Chidai on its own, that's what you'll find. can touch on that. I mean, the light is what it is. The light, let's say, in the middle of the room. Now I look around all over the place, and I'm boidig all over in the different. Let's just have an example. That's a nair. It is in a way. I follow that light, and I look over and I say, this is the light. This is the light. This is the light. I mean, that's a light, and this is the nair. What's it got to do one with the others? I don't know. If you look in every place where the light, where these pashtus is, then you only find the nair on its own. So he says, Sha'etzem hu echad pashut. The etzem is a echad pashut. The nair is a dova pashut. Mishum zeh hishpashtusai hu b'chid bli. It can go anywhere. It can go. B'chol setave iva. I mean, in the Moshe it's a little bit sort of limited to say that, but in a way, unless something stops it, which is, distance or power or chayzin was, the nair, just goes wherever, it just keeps going. It shines all over the place. Arish pashtusei hu b'ligvo, u b'chinas peshitas ha'atzmas. Oh, sorry. Who beginners peshitas va'atzmas who gam be'ais pashtas. He said the peshitas of the atzmas is also there in the his pashta. In other words, pink to see the etzem is poshu to the ha'ora mimenu b'derech is pashta is also poshu. Pashtas. V'zesha oma dichad daikis behoin. Once you pay careful attention behoin in all the ha'oras in all the corners and the sides. Hainu bis pashtus bi'ais pashtus loy tishkak, you won't find ela butzina b'lchuy doihi, you'll only find the nair on its own, the pshitas ha'atzmas who gam came bi'is pashtus. So he said, why the time? So he said the Indra the Tikkun Izah says, what is it's not, nobody wants to say that the Neir and the Ha'ora are mamish uisoi hadova. You can't really say that. But he said, when you find the Ha'ora, because Sita Va'ira, you'll be waiting, you find the Ha'ora, what you're really finding in the Ha'ora is the Pshitas of the Etzem. You're not finding mamish the Etzem, but you're not finding anything either apart from that. Because Pink to see the Etzem is Tachlis Pshitas, so is the Ha'ora Tachlis Pshitas. However, when you find the Ispashtas, you find the Oya B'chol Sitava, Starva, the Iva, then you're finding really the Pshitas of the Atzmas. Because what makes that, what it is, the Pshitas of the Atzmas. That's how the Rabbi teaches it. Loi tishkach ela butzina bilcho doi the pshitas ha'atzmas hu gam kein bis pashtas. Aber loi shiyeh me'adov ha'poshe b'chinas gvulum chiyet. And was he coming to be shoylul? He's not coming to say that the his pashtas from adov ha'poshut should be something completely different than it. Dainu gvul. Matthias or inyonim of that nature, he's sure that legamri, and that's why I said you don't find only the nair, because the nair has those inyonim. Only the nair has those inyonim. These pashtas also has there. Amamil kum to isla fize. The chiddush of the result of the Kun Zoya is that in that these pashtas, wherever you will find it, you find the same and essential makeup of the atzmas in these pashtas. And Mamela come to us that Hadikot, or that Idrazut was telling me an amazing thing, that you can't really be emes, be mavdil between these pashtas and the etzem, if the etzem is a dova poshut. Because that means that automatically that same Peshitas Mamish will be found in the Dova HaMishpashet the Dova HaMishpashet Mimeno. The only thing is that we suggest that since we're talking here about Atu Chad V'Loibe V'Chushpan, and we're talking about Madreg Sof Kosof, which is Madreg in Gilui HaOyres or Elyonim, it's Keser, or Pnimis HaKeser, or Chulu, then we can't very well say that is like the ha'ora of the first madrega in oil, which is meir from the atzma, which for sure also has pshitas in there, all the inyanim. Over there, the oil is completely shaloi be'erech ha'atzmas klal. The atzmas, as regards all these pashtusim mimenu, is legamri shaloi, and we couldn't be able to say that in that pashtus. I find the butina levado. Over there, the atzmas is legamri lo be'erech shumdo. Until we say that even these pashtus over there is like a yeshmi ayin. Over here, we're already talking about a gilui min atzmas, which is Shitas, the Hainu the Inifan Kesa is something which is Meir Mizeh, has in itself the whole shlemas of the Madrega, which is being Meir, that is Pashtas, picked to say it is in the Etim, and the Dozuta means that you can find in these Pashtas the Butzina Bil Chodoye, Etim or itself. What do we mean by all that? That these pashtas are meir from a dover poshut is also bepshitas, and it's also beli gvul. Just as every demokia is also beli gvul. Because since something is poshut and it's not mugbal al yedei kol matzir, when it gives it off from itself, there's literally nothing that can prevent it or stop it from just going. So it just keeps going because there's no constituency in that which would in any way conk out or limit it or it just keeps going say. But that's one of the inyonim, derech hagav, just by the way. In what you might call the ein sefer, the neshama, what you might call the nitzchiyas of a neshama, because that's what the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, Pregnonarav. He says that the neshama is a etzem ruchni poshut. The neshama is also a poshut. Something which is poshut, that it just keeps going. Ein v'zeh shum dover she'yagbil it. It's a me'anit that Gabi Lavi just said here also. Gabi the immediate pshitas of the atzmas mamish, and the neshama is already a zach. Gabi the concept of pshitas, it's not a zach klal. It's kiyum, it's the kiyum nitzchi. But in kol dor she'makbil it. And that's the point of the Yidruzut, that in etzem, which is meir, in his pashtas are meir from my etzem poshut, you got the whole, as it were, makui of the etzem, b'bchinas ein shum dor hamonea, just keep going, l'loi kol, hagbala klal u klal, and if you say mitzat the shleimus of that pshita, you can talk about dagas, then those dagas will also just be believed. Sof hagbara klalu klal, and that's what we say every day in davening. That you say in Baruch Shoma, you say Meshubach Hamofoya Adei Ad Shmoi Hagote. And so it's put down in some of our. We learned it once. Now you guys, I don't know if you would remember. No, maybe you didn't, because that's in the second or the third minor of some. I don't know if we get that. You guys came in a bit later along the line. You were there, I think. So, anyway, the Kasha from Maaseh is Meshubach Mofeya Ad Shmei Adei Ad Shmei Agol Tais Rabbi. That the inyan from Meshubach Mofeya Adei Ad is referring to the Ora Seiv, and the Ora Seiv is Gilea Atzman. She said Meshubach Mofeya Adei Ad. And that's a pshat Shmoi Hagodol, not the Stam Shmoi, but Shmoi Hagodol. You meet this Asreiv, and Lamera Adei Ad, everything inside that is Adei Ad. And he said it's not to say that there couldn't be Madregas B'teich HaSeiv. Because since the Seiv itself is a Ha'ora, Yachol Yot Sheyesh B'sei Gam B'teich Zeh Madrega, but each Madrega will also be Adei Ad. And Lamera Meshubach HaMafoya Adei Ad was Shmoi Hagodol, the infant Seiv of Mam. So now hopefully tomorrow morning you'll say Baruch She'oma with a little bit less rushing, and you'll just pause for a second when you say Baruch She'oma, and you say, oh, how wonderful, how chaylik do we learn in Tom Chaytzmim. We heard a little bit of a feel, what is the Taish Meshuvah Hamofoya Ad Shmoi HaGod. Maybe Kuli Hai V'ulai, that'll be Puyo, that the whole downing will sort of pause a little bit and won't rush so much and won't be such a sort of, heard a tap. And Mir Tzishem, is it good time. Is it mehr sein der Kitay? So I could maybe be married binyan zev and gerlin masuyam, but I don't know if I got the time or the koach to turn that. Maybe by Farbringen we might be able to do it, but the trouble is nowadays you start talking about Indian by Farbringen, everybody says, oh, everybody else gets up and they have to go out and they have to rush outside and get fresh air and go to Christ, excuse me, what they have to do. But if you tell some sort of really, out of the way story or something, they'll sit while and listen to it. Or you're talking about Indian, and that was the unbelievable hatzlacha that our past speaker had. This hatzlacha shleik derech hateva. He spoke all sorts of inyonim, and yet he managed to hold them. These pastures, avaloi shiich. Listen, you guys, you got to know how to smile occasionally. I mean, I don't mean everything so terribly. Occasionally, I can mean a little bit something humorously. I don't mean.
You have to raise the smile flag.
Huh?
You have to raise the smile flag.
I have to raise the smile flag, right? Yeah.
Flat now.
That's so true. I said, there you can smile, guys. Good to hear. So he says, "Avaloi sheyeh mi'adov ha'poshet gvulum." Sure. V'im hoya b'chinas bitul b'chinas heder. Now we're back now to the ayin habei after the brackets. But if the inen of the ayin habei is hoya b'chinas bitul b'chinas heder amatzias, hari lo hoya b'chinas moker. Wouldn't be able to be a moker like we saw. The kol moker behechreach. It must be some entity that it can give rise from mitoichatz, my other entities, and it be mashpir to them, like we pointed out, then it has to be itself in the whole klolos of Geder Dover Ma. Sure, and I'm going to come to this that if you're moker, then you have to be even Amatzias Dorma. And he brings now a very interesting dogma there. He says, Ukamoi Aidi de Tori Lamivla Loi Poli. But you see all the here there guys immediately offering a brief smile of inner understanding and anxiousness to be Mavaya. Was it even if an Aidi de Tori Lamivla Loi Poli? Meaning that an entity which has begun to be boleya mitad what is a time she'iyeh. But the cloud of Aida the Torah is where an entity is being boleya mitad chuim, and usually from a dova halach v'derech. It's where that's occurring. Then loy polit, it's not able to give forth. In other words, it's so busy taking in and absorbing, it's not able to give forth. It doesn't mean to say that it can't possibly under any circumstances give forth, but at the moment that it's being boleya, it can't do both things. It can't give out and be boleya at the same time. So that was it, the Rebbe. Yeah. Shazeu gam came be ilava olu. That's also the case in ilava olu. What's it in shaita ilava olu? Shekisha ila truda lekabo mi iloso. Then Eina V'chinas Ila Leha Olul Shelamata Himenu. Well, that's what we want to bring out. Aida the Tori Lamivla Loi Palit means that where Olul is being that's about to become a Ila to something Lamata Himenu, is busy being makabel from its Ila, then it's just like the Ila. It's not able to be makabel to the mashpir to the olul shalamata mimeno, because it's so completely absorbed in being makabel from the ilah, itzilah, meaning that it's so betachlis habitul lagabi its ilah that it can't itself become a ilah to a olul lamata himeno, because it's completely absorbed and torud and completely preoccupied in being makabel for its own self from its own ilah. And therefore, Eina B'chinas Ila La'ol Shelamata Mimenu. If that's the case, and that's in Ilava Ol, what every Ilava Ol has got a certain erech from one level to the other. For Kol Shechen says the Rebbe Be'inyan HaIsavas, how much more so in the Inif and the Isavas, meaning Yesh Mi Ayin, the Isavas of the Yesh in the Ilum is Biyah. Shetorik Liyah Bechinas Koyach HaPoel Lifoel Dvar HaIsavas, that there's got to be a Koyach HaPoel, there's got to go out something from the Koyach HaPoel into the Nifal, in order to be Poel his Isavas and his Kiyum. Shetzehu Har B'Yeshem in Ilava. That's much more of a tremendous hashpah and tremendous koyach on the part of the Ila, as it were, to produce such a Ina that it is in the Ina of Ilava, in the Ilava Olo. It would follow if he's there that the Mokeh, which is going to give forth the Ina and Yesh, in order to be Mahava, the Ina and Yesh Miyayin, then we have to say, that it's, how do you call it, a botel. But however, the point we're making here is that if we're going to say that by the Ila, in order to give forth to its Ol, it's got to be a Matthias, it can't be a Torah Polit, then where there's a much greater Inyan occurring, and the Imam is going over to a new Matthias, but Derek Yesh Miyayin, then how much more so that Mokkah is going to have to be some sort of a Matthias. That's the point that we're making. And therefore, if we say that the Ila of Ol, which is a relative Inyan, the Ila to give to its Ol has to be a Matthias, where it's producing a whole Inyan Michutz Mimeno, Yesh Miyayin, how much more so it has to be a Matthias. And therefore he says, for Kol Shchein, meaning how much more that it must be a Inyan for the Matthias, Kol Shchein Be'inyan HaIsavas, Shetzorik Leis Bechinas Koyach HaPoel, Lifoel Dvar, so something has to go out from it in order to be poiled, V'dova Chutz Mimenu, Shezeu Ha V'yezem Inyan V'Ilava Ol, K'mesh Kosim Mochim Acher, the Inyan Ilava Ol, Hina HaIsavas Ol, B'v'der Mamela, Alideus Pashtasa Ila. In other words, the Ila doesn't really put a great deal of effort into him. Just that if he's Aidid the Torah, then he doesn't even do that. Or if he's not Aidid the Torah, then he doesn't really work very atzmiostic way to give forth the Ol. It just happens to B'derech Mamela. Kiyadua. And says the Midas Aruli Me'asecha almost B'derech Mamela. However, he said in the Inif and Yesh Miyayin, Mashikim B'Yesh Miyayin, Shelo Yeh B'derech Mamela. It's not in a way that just happens. Ki'im Alidei Pulos Ha'ayin Lahavis Ha. Yes. And it follows that we have to say that Mokeh, which is producing the Yesh, has to be more of a Dovamar, has to be more deliberately in the form of a Dovamar, because it's got to produce Ayin and Pu'ula Mamish Michutz Mi Atzmusay Ke'ilo. Therefore, it's got a Kol Shchein L'Gabidin V'Nilva Olo. So he says, the Inyan, now the Rabbi goes on to say, the Inyan Abitl the Heder HaMatzias, who Har B'Yesem Abitl the Eile the Torid L'Mivla, Shu B'chinas Bitl HaYesh Levad, V'Abitl the Heder HaMatzias, who B'chinas Bitl Amiti Kanal. Im Kain, Imoy B'chinas Heder HaMatzias, Eich Yeh B'chinas Mokeh Leyesh. In other words, now the Rabbi is making it a whole sort of Kal V'Chomer. He's sort of showing us just how interesting that old Kal V'Chomer is. That if I say Be'ilva, it has to be a Dovamah. How much more so here, Fabus? He said because the Ayin HaBeis, if it was in a state of Heder HaMatzias Lagamre, like the Ayin HaElef, then it wouldn't be able to. It wouldn't be able to be in a state of a mashpia. Therefore, we have to say that Ayin HaBeis is like almost a Kol Shchein, different than the Ayin HaAleph, because it's got to give forth to Yesh Mi'ayin, a Chutz Mi'atzma, a Poyel, B'toch HaNifal. And therefore, we have to say that it's already in an oifen of a Dovamah, even though it's coming as a Ha'orah from a level which is Heder HaMatzias. Or if it would have in itself that Heder HaMatzias that the Ayin HaAleph has, then it wouldn't be able to achieve anything. And that's a Nakuda. It wouldn't be able to be in a state of Bitl Amiti. So that's the read that last sentence again. Ve'ina bittul deheda matzias. What that's the emissary bittul of the Aina Aleph. Who are b'yezem bittul da'ared the Torah lemivla. In other words, that the Aina base coming as he does from the Aina Aleph, these bittul gabihim is much more than the inif and ayed the Torah lemivla loy polu. Yeshu b'chinas bittul hayesh levad. That's only inif and bittul hayesh ayed the Torah. Bittul deheda matzias bittul amiti. Ukanal b'moshu bittul ha-Talmud lifnei Rabbi. We learned that the bittul of the Talmud in being makabel the pnimis of the shefa from the Rav, but that's in from bittul from Heder Tfisas Mokim, or how do you call it? Bittul b'matzias and bittul amiti. In Cain, im hoya b'chinas Heder matzias, eich b'chinas mocher le'yesh ami saver. How could it possibly be a mocher for the yesh saver? Meaning that this Ayin base, if it were like its Ayin Aleph, then it wouldn't be able to be a mocher b'klal for the hisavas of the matzias. We have to say that the alteration from the Ayin Aleph into the Ayin base is one that makes the Ayin base already into some form of Matthias Tovama, and that's a Kal V'Chema from Ilivol. Even Ilivol, we say it has to be some sort of Tovama, and I did the Torah Lemivla, Loipol, it's not going to be able to do it. How much more so here we have to say that it has to become a Matthias Tovama, because here's Mamish got to produce a Yesh Michutz Leha, Ayin altogether, it's a much greater and much more powerful Indian of his Havit. And here the Chiddush is that even though it's being nimshach and derived from a state of Emerson Bittul B'Matir, but nonetheless we say that it has to be evolved in such a way that it will become Ayin from Matthias Dovama in order to be mashpia into the Yesh Amisaber. Good, so we'll hold there for this evening. We'd just like to bring up one point that somebody mentioned before, but I get to Yud Shvat. So the Seder we're hoping to make is Yud Shvat Tuesday night, Yud B'Shvat. That's when we chazad the Maimah after etc. Right? So and that's during the all three tefillas, and you finish the 5 oases at the end of tefillas Amincha, plus all the other minhagim and the Ikeder to that day. Alpha Bring is going to be Moitzei Yud Shvat, and we're going to have a Suda because we have a younger man that he was the one who donated all the shipputzim here and the refurbishing of the library and part of the air conditioner over there, to be quite fair and true. He's one of our former Talmudim, and his brother, Rahman Islam, was killed on Yud Aleph Shvat. He was never killed in America. So he is the first Yortzeit, and he wants to make a Suda, to cover his brother. So we're going to make a Suda, we're going to wash and everything and make a Suda, and there'll be the Fabringen, or could there be a Fabringen? That'll be Moitzit, that'll be to Yud Aleph Shvat. But that's accurate in a way, because that's when the Rebbe was actually in the Kabul to see it. It was Moitzei Yud Shvat going into Yud Aleph. That's the famous Fabring where the Rebbe took upon himself leadership. So, even though there were all sorts of signs that looked pretty inevitable that he would do that, but he said he wasn't. But all sorts of amazing stories that happened during that time which indicate that he was going to do it, but he wouldn't say that to anybody. Nobody would get the Rebbe to actually say he was going to do it, but it seems pretty clear. That's what we'll do. So have we got any volunteers to, it's a bit of a task to chazar between now and Tuesday night, to chazar portions of the Maimah, Baal Peh. Is anybody prepared to do that? You're prepared to do a bit?
No one did about Bay last year. Everyone just read it.
You'll read it, yeah. I guess in our minyan, we'll just have to have people to read it. It's a bit hard to expect you guys to chazar off. It's a very difficult text. It's a very profound text. The Basili Ganin, not a first. The original Basili Ganin, the Rebbe's Basili Ganin, also tremendous bombshells all of them.
So I guess that's what we'll do then. We'll just make in our minyan, we'll make it to be read out. But you must be very careful, whoever's going to read, you must be careful to go over it carefully, and you must look up the Maimar Chazal and the Pesukim. Don't just quote whatever comes into your head, because it sounds not good, and it's not a proper comment to the text. You have to make sure you look up at Maimar Chazal, what is the actual Lashon, how is it said, and whoever's going to do the Chazorah must work on it a little bit, even though he won't actually be Chazing, he'll just be saying it inside. All right? So that's much on the Seder, and we hope the Seder will be that we'll all go up to Yerushalayim, and the Binyan Beis Hamikdash Ashlishi will come down in the Shemayim, and it's a time Erikot La Yehudim Hoy Sa'er V'Simcha Sosin Yikor Ad L'Neitza, including even for Gili L'Saneta. Good.